Welcome to History That Doesn't Suck. I am your professor, Greg Jackson, and today it's time to do another epilogue. Breaking away from our usual narrative, we did have Dr. Kat Brown on just last time, but it's Kelsi Dines, everyone, as always. Kelsi, please say hello. I just charge in, please.
Hey, y'all.
There we go. As we were talking this week, I've got the next episode pretty much ready to go. And I know many of you are looking forward to, this is the episode where the U.S. gets in the war.
Here come the Americans.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, there were a lot of responses, a lot of excited listeners at Philippe Pétain's line there. But there was so much information in these last 4 episodes that
there's a lot to unpack.
Yes, and I think we both kind of realized maybe now's the time to have some of that discussion.
And then get into the
properly just leave all the true, if you will, U.S. entry and battles to come
together.
Yeah, keep that connected. We've got so much to discuss in this. Basically, the non-U.S. history volume of HTDS, in as much as that will ever be a thing. The 20th century does present a little bit of that, and as I'd hope people noticed, I was very careful to get us through the early parts of World War I. I both want to make sure people are aware of what's there so that it makes more sense when the U.S. enters the war, but I also am going to make sure we move quickly because this remains a U.S. history-focused podcast, even as the United States is now the global massive 800-pound gorilla, and it's only going to become more and more the case as we get deeper into the 20th century. But I get ahead of myself. We'll unpack all of this. We begin with one correction that I'm very pleased to be able to make. David in Massachusetts, a National Park Service guide, NPS.
We love them.
We adore them. Anytime we can't find what we're looking for from archival material, other primary sources, secondary sources, I love being able to call up these veritable walking encyclopedias that work for the NPS. They're always so polite and kind.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. So all that said, David, my gratitude to you, sir. In the actually, this would have been the original, but in the remaster of, I want to say it's episode 6?
6, yes.
6. As we got out to Concord, I have been to Lexington. I have seen the reenactment of the battle at Lexington, which was awesome. Didn't make it to Concord. I know, close, but there are reasons. We won't get into it.
Far drive.
No, sure isn't. But so I have not been able to physically see the site. As I try to describe, these. It's like most, frankly, of the battlefields. It's not like I have witnessed all of these.
Haven't been to every single battlefield that we've talked about.
Yeah, somehow that hasn't been able to fit into my life. So all that said, from what I was putting together, I said that the Concord hymn was inscribed on the obelisk. If you remember the episode, this is perhaps meaningful, and if you don't, we'll go listen to the episode. You'll connect. It's been fixed in the episode, but I still want to note it.
Yeah.
I said that it was inscribed on the obelisk initially, and it was actually inscribed on a statue very near the obelisk. Small things, but I don't like to, I always like to get all of them. So, David, my gratitude to you, and just again, NPS, you people rock. So there's that. Kelsi, let's talk about these episodes, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I think I'm excited to talk about World War I specifically.
Me too.
But
It's been interesting to get into it because my grandpa was in World War I.
I'm sorry, did you say your grandpa was in World War I?
Yes, my grandpa was born in 1898.
How did you not share this with me? How did you sit on? I'm glad you did. I'm curious to hear it now.
He was born right around the time of the beginning of the Spanish-American War.
Okay.
And so he was 19-ish when the U.S. enters the war. He went to Fort Douglas here in Utah to train, and then got influenza
Oh,
and got sent home because my grandpa's family was a founding member of a very small town that I grew up in and got sent home because it was really close. And then he got better and went back. And by the time he was ready to go, the war was over. But
influenza might have saved his life. That's a weird state. And as we will get to, the Spanish flu, as it's known, it's going to be quite the killer.
No, it was his mom, I guess, kept him in one room of the house. Nobody but her was allowed to enter the room. I'm surprised she didn't get sick.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it was
a big deal.
Still better than letting anyone else in the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have a picture somewhere of me wearing his uniform.
Really?
All of my cousins, we've all gotten pictures of us wearing it.
That's
and
cool.
my brother owns it right now. Has it in his possession.
I imagine that is a cherished family heirloom with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been really excited for this.
Yeah, we're into Grandpa's territory.
I didn't ever know him because he died in the 80s before I was born. But
there's that connection.
That connection.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, before we get to all that, let's. I feel like I just dogged episode 127. That wasn't my intention, but 127 was very much meant to kind of. I'll still sound like
we
I'm
have to
putting
introduce
it down.
Wilson.
Well, yeah, we do have to. Not that we haven't seen a little bit of him, but yeah, There were so many other things that happened in his presidency.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah.
And it was not a complete image in and of itself. We've gotten a few messages, people asking about specifically 18th Amendment, which has not been touched on yet. Also, Wilson, and as it's always found in the indexes of the books on him. And race relations, Wilson enacts, basically he brings segregation into the civil service. W.E.B. Du Bois will be less than pleased with actions that happen under the Woodrow Wilson administration. And so I've been asked about that as well. That is coming. It's very planned for a whole episode, as is the 18th Amendment.
They're bigger than just throwing into this one episode.
Precisely. And so happy to, let you all be aware that these things are coming.
We're not ignoring them.
Patience. All of these things in their due course. The 18th Amendment, I very purposely, prohibition's the real story on the 18th Amendment.
Yeah.
You
don't want to just skim over that.
No way. We're going to we're going to hang out with some gangsters. Right?
I'm excited for that.
That's very much happening. So the idea of doing an episode where I really just kind of talk through all the legal history. Well, I mean, I'll give you the legal history, but let's wrap it up with some of the excitement.
The interesting stuff that people, because we don't want to hear necessarily all the legal jargon, but you want to hear how it impacts people.
Yeah, we'll get to the
speakeasies
and and so similarly with Woodrow Wilson's actions on race, we have an episode planned that's going to examine the reemergence of the KKK, and so that will be the opportunity to kind of look at all of those things playing out in the 19-teens and into the 1920s.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's there for you.
It's coming.
It's coming. And realize there will be other things as we get into the 20th century. This will only become more so the case.
Yeah, well, especially with these big world wars.
That's what I mean. Whatever the thing is you're into, I love the excitement of listeners. What about this? When are we going to get it? It's coming. It's coming. I promise. But episode 127 specifically, I mean, a few things that I like to highlight. Really make sure that we've caught. 16th and 17th Amendments, speaking of legal things that perhaps are less exciting, right? Less exciting, but super important. So I won't rehash what's in the episode. The key thing on the 16th Amendment is that this really makes it unquestionably possible for Congress to have an income tax imposed on a federal level. Again, the details on that are in 127, but the thing that I would perhaps ask you to reflect back to is if you go all the way back to the beginning of this whole story, right? We go back to those Revolutionary era episodes. I mean, think about the Articles of Confederation. They couldn't even tax. like at all, right?
A little jumpy.
There was such a knee-jerk reaction. The sentiment of taxation without representation that was very much an impetus in driving everything. So getting to the Constitutional Convention, the framers, although still nervous and scared about big government being able to tax, they realized that the federal government can't function without being able to raise funds. So Congress is given the ability to tax. That's envisioned as coming through imports and excise taxes primarily. This constitutional amendment, though, the 16th, opens the door indisputably to income tax. So you see the United States, the American people, they've shifted. They've changed.
And they don't have that fear anymore because that's not something they really experienced.
And the perception, and I guess this would be a key thing, the perception, whether you agree or disagree with it. We're also now getting into things that increasingly, people still debate into the present, right? Like in our 21st century. So another one of the key factors here is that all that massive wealth that we saw going back to the Gilded Age episodes, this is unreal. The
amount of money that
that they're living through as well, right? Like we're going from, John Hancock was wealthy back in colonial Massachusetts, right? He'd have been your Rockefeller for the colony of Massachusetts, but being the Rockefeller of just little colonial Massachusetts is not being Rockefeller of the United States. Yeah, so that's where you now have so much wealth in the picture in the hands of such a small group that you have Americans grappling with. Is that amount of wealth in one person's hands actually a threat? And this is where there was a scholar I quoted, and he talked about both the kind of the liberal and conservative arguments that both can apply to the 16th Amendment. So on the quote unquote liberal side, there was an absolute redistribution of wealth component. On the conservative side, the fact that the argument is beginning with a question of, is liberty being threatened by that much money being in the hands of one person? And so the impetus for the redistribution of wealth is coming from a place of protecting representative government and individual liberty. Yeah. Everyone can make whatever they want of this, right? But I told myself I was going to be so quick on this, Kelsi. You have to shut me up. I start nerding out fast.
Okay, now the next one.
Okay, so the 17th Amendment, also super important, especially I would say, this again gets into things that people discuss into the present. When we remember that the United States started as 13 colonies that then saw themselves as 13 sovereign mini states. They were states, right? They're just mini in our, especially out west, right? The East Coast. It's fun talking with friends on the East Coast when they come out here, and it's just a state over, right? Yeah, it's a like freaking state over.
Away.
You need a flight if you want to get to that quickly. You don't just drive to Arizona.
You do.
Well, sure, if you plan the day. Yeah.
If you have, some time to kill.
Yeah, there's no...
We also measure distance in hours. Oh, it only takes like 4 hours to get there.
That's right. So the fact that they started as sovereign states, a part of what the Constitution did, this was a huge compromise to actually hand over sovereignty, parts of sovereignty. And then there's that big wrestling of what does that mean and how does that shift? You read through the Federalist Papers. Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, John Jay, they're trying to weigh in on what that shift might look like. The debate continues with Americans for decades. The Civil War is, of course, a big exclamation point on settling some of that question. And then we have more amendments that follow that solidify more power with the federal government. Anyhow, we've talked about that in previous episodes. So all that to say, the 17th Amendment is... just like the 16th Amendment is a movement by reform-minded progressives saying we need to reassess what's going on with wealth to ensure liberty. The idea here, and at least that, again, I'll always couch, I'm not trying to take anyone's side, right? That's the argument that was being made. And clearly, if the amendment passed,
enough
vast
people agreed
majority
with it.
of America, was on board with that, whether you agree or disagree looking back. So for the 17th Amendment, this was, again, addressing, the failure being that sometimes with state legislatures appointing senators, as had been the case, sometimes you had state politics get in the way, and they just left the seat unfilled. So you would have vacancies in the Senate because of, whatever, scandal or shenanigans are at play back in New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, New Jersey. You got picked for that one. That's probably unfair. But with the idea that we'll now do direct elections, so that's the big change, we're making the United States more democratic.
More people focused.
Yes. And when I don't mean the party, but when I say democratic, what I mean is more direct democracy, to be clear. We're having the citizens of a state elect their senators directly. So that's direct democracy at play, as opposed to the indirect representation where you would elect your state legislators who then in turn select a senator.
Which I actually, despite having taken AP government and passing that test.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Did you not know that? Well, there you go,
Or I
Kelsi.
totally forgot it.
I'm going to guess you totally forgot
I probably
it.
did.
But hey, there we go. It's you've
Now
been
I
reminded.
Remember.
Wow, I nerded out on that.
Yes, you did.
Dang it, Kelsi. You got to stop me.
I'm sorry. My eyes glossed over for a second.
Was it that boring?
No,
Okay.
It wasn't. It's just late.
That's fair. Look, the key thing beyond getting into Woodrow Wilson's progressive, accomplishments in episode 127. Clearly, the nation still from Teddy's days is still very much on the progressive bandwagon.
Oh yeah,
because Woodrow wouldn't be. We say it like he accomplished it, and I don't mean to ever take away from a president, but presidents don't unilaterally just.
He doesn't get to make
through.
all these decisions just by himself.
Exactly. So the fact that there's that support in Congress among the American people, it speaks to a time where the people of the United States are really seeing the need for some serious reform.
Yeah.
He also super doesn't know international relations at all,
No,
which
he doesn't.
I kind of love highlighting that because that's what he's known for today.
All this stuff that we'll talk about after.
Yes.
World
So
War
yeah,
I.
we won't get ahead of ourselves, but he's really kind of floundering, as we saw, whether it was from Haiti to, Mexico, the punitive expedition. The one little highlight I want to bring on the punitive expedition, I want us to remember that when we get to the next episode and I start talking about the Zimmerman telegram. So to quickly remind you, the punitive expedition, these are American troops. They're in Mexico. They're pursuing Pancho Villa after he's made an attack on U.S. soil. This is within the context of American troops already being in Mexico during the Mexican Revolution. Point being, tensions are high between Mexico and the United States. Mexico very justifiably feels that its sovereignty has been walked all over by its northern neighbor, and that's when the Zimmerman telegram comes in. I'll save most of the details for the next episode, but in it, Germany is asking Mexico to make war on the United States and is offering to assist Mexico in taking 3 U.S. states that were formerly Mexican territory before the Mexican-American War back in the 1840s. So when we remember that the punitive expedition is going on, at least for me, we're realizing that this telegram isn't just bringing up something that is water under the bridge. This isn't looking at a border shift from over half a century ago. It's discussing shifting that border back at a moment when tensions are high, when feelings are fraught between Mexico and the United States. And that, as during with the punitive expedition, it just it hits harder in my mind when you realize
there's a lot of this current feeling going on.
Yes.
Like it's not just because of the Mexican-American War 100 years.
Decades ago, right?
Before.
Yeah, it's not like Mexico's getting this telegram kind of out of the blue. Like,
yeah,
that was a part of Mexico way back in the day. Like that just happened. So there are fraught feelings. It's a moment of tension between the two neighbors here. Okay, let's wrap it up there because we have so much more to talk about with World War I. We'll take a quick break and we're going to dive into those causes.
Perfect.
And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Kelsi, the causes, the 99-year causes of World War I. Can I tell you, that was a fun episode for me. In part because it was a challenge. Well, Yes and no.
to yourself?
There's no episode that I have done to date, right? We're at the time of this recording, I've got the next one pretty much written. We're just over 130 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That episode, more than any other, was as close to being one of the lectures I regularly give in class as any. Now, here's where it got challenging, though. When I cover the causes of World War I in the classroom, first of all, it's typically a twice-a-week class.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 75-minute window. Right? And that episode did go...
It was a little longer.
Yeah, it wasn't quite an hour. It was like an hour and five, I think. An hour, 5 minutes. But, it... Obviously, when I'm in the classroom, it's not like I've got sound design, behind me, and I'm going to story mode. I mean,
I think a lot of people would appreciate college lectures
right.
if there was sound effects.
Can you imagine that? I'll be like the live show. We'll just bring a band in.
Perfect.
It'll be great. Yeah, no problem. Lights kick in. Yeah.
Professors take note.
This is all in the budget. It's no problem.
Yeah.
At every university. This won't drive tuition up. Okay, broad strokes. In case anyone got lost, I did get a few messages, not from anyone saying they got lost per se, but like, I had to listen to that one twice.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of information that's being covered. 99 years in 65 minutes.
Yeah. So
just how much is being covered?
30,000 foot view. If I were to make that even shorter, the real key thing is to see how these five great powers of Europe, right? Prussia, Russia, they rhyme, super different though. Okay.
I always forget where Prussia was. Right. Like, I know I've heard it, but in my mind, I can't ever picture like where on the map it sat. So that was nice.
Yeah. This is an episode best listened to with some maps.
Yes.
I do think, but Prussia.
When I reviewed it, I definitely had Europe maps pulled up.
It's a good chunk of modern Germany. Prussia was, again, the second to Austria initially in terms of kind of, being the leader of the Germanic pack in this large central space of Europe filled with Germanic peoples, but not of the same kingdom, or rather principality under the Holy Roman Empire. To give the 30,000 foot view, the five great powers, so Prussia, just ballparking it as modern Germany. It was modern Germany's more than that, but Prussia, Austria, that messy situation, right, of Austria having conquered all these other groups of peoples, Russia, the massive sprawling Eurasian empire, France, and Great Britain, those five great powers, right, realizing what a horrendous nightmare they've gone through during the Napoleonic War, and taking that's why I start with the Congress of Vienna. To me, that's crucial to the framing of World War I. You've got to be able to know how Europe, enough generations have passed, they have been able to truly forget with the relative peace. It's not perfect peace. We saw that Otto von Bismarck's three wars, right? Is he brilliant, brutal? Those two adjectives together with Otto von Bismarck. But as he as he fabricates and sets up this different Europe, I'll get to that in a second. But the real big 99-year view to keep in mind is how Europe goes from having lived through the horror of the Napoleonic Wars, which I don't know if I can put an exclamation point on that. That's too big. We're talking about 2 decades across the whole continent. Everyone has seen how brutal and ugly war can be. And that's why they carefully set up this concert of Europe at the Congress of Vienna. And then that, it slowly gets whittled away. It proves very elastic. It's able to change and shift and morph. But as I mentioned, historians, some look at, say, the revolutions of 1848, which I think is pretty premature, but they're like, it's kind of toast. 1870 is a pretty fair year, I think, to make that assertion with the Franco-Prussian War. So the reminder that the three wars of Otto von Bismarck, 1864, 1866, and then 1870, that's where he pieces together this stronger Prussia, proves that a bigger Prussia, picks up Schleswig, Schleswig, I won't say it right this time, but and Holstein gets those into Prussia, takes on Austria in 1866, proves that Prussia's bigger, badder, and all that jazz than Austria. Now, I didn't go into story mode for this. I almost did, but the episode was already, again, so long.
It's so long.
Had to keep it. But the Ems telegram, as it's called. So in Bad Ems, I did mention that the French ambassador goes and sees Kaiser. Excuse me, he's not Kaiser yet. The Prussian king Wilhelm goes and sees him. This is a spa town, right? So basically, he's on vacation.
As you do,
more or less catches him on the street, and they have this quick conversation. He's like, "Hey, thanks for not supporting, your relative going on to the Spanish throne." And
because let's be honest, they're all related to each other.
Well, they are, but that's like super related, right? They're of the same house, and France is freaking out the idea of, basically two borders, same family, like close family, and Wilhelm's like, yeah, no worries.
It's all good.
The ambassador pushes the envelope. Hey, can we get you to be like, that will super never happen? And, king, good for him. I respect it. Like, no. Why would I have myself in the future? You know where I stand today. We'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes. Okay. And when he telegraphs that to Bismarck. Now, it's a little overstated by some historians. They make it sound like Bismarck took that and just edited the hell out of it. But he took just little tweaks. Little tweaks. Yeah, just the ellipses in the right place just to make it feel a little more heightened. Again, probably less than some of the history books that you'll read out there. But he did. A little smidge, a little titch.
There was definitely some editing going on there.
Yeah, he had a little salt to that stew, a little more, something, and then released that to the presses and just set France up for this war. I really don't know how else to frame him than being like, do I support someone just manipulating to create wars? No. This guy plays Europe like a chessboard, though. Like, at the same time, you just have to acknowledge the man his intelligence is off the charts.
Well, and the way that he knows how people are going to react, he knows how to read people, and how to manipulate them into doing exactly what it is he wants them to do.
So Mr. Blood and Iron, I mean, he is scary
the puppet
smart.
Master.
Yeah, and this is the other thing that I think is worth pointing out about him. The dude knew when to stop.
Yeah,
so
he didn't push it too far.
Exactly. I mean, from Alexander the Great to Napoleon,
it's easy to get to that point where you go just a little too far, and that's too much. But I think he.
So many of these conquerors throughout history, not to say that you condone or agree with conquest, but just
acknowledge that
in a factual way. Yeah, you would have kept things together had you just stopped at this point. Right. No, Napoleon had to go charging into Moscow in the middle of winter.
Looking back, probably not the best idea.
Wasn't the best idea. Yeah. Europe could, it's not to say it would be for the better. It would probably look pretty different had he not done that.
Probably.
Who knows? You can't even follow that. Now we get into the counterfactual history, which I'm not a super fan of. It's too messy.
Well,
who knows?
Exactly. But you have no idea what would have happened.
But for Otto von Bismarck to be like, yep, I'm a man of peace. Love me nothing more than some peace. We so don't want war. Europe, let's have peace. Austria, Austria-Hungary to be exact. I always drop the Hungary. It's
I think most people do.
I know, but we'll be precise here.
Yeah.
Right. Russia. Hey, let's all be friends. I know you guys are super competing over the Balkans, but let's be friends. And the fact that he even makes that happen, to any degree, it's that same, just his own league, a league of his own, that guy.
Yeah, I would never be able to be that person.
Well, as we fly through this again, that is a key turning point. It's a very different map of Europe. Nationalism has played its role. I don't want to overstate the role of nationalism either. I mean, because Otto von Bismarck, he used people who were fans of nationalism, who wanted to see nations linked together by same ethnicity or race or language and whatnot. And to better understand that movement, think about what Europe looks like at this point. You've got where it's been might makes right. So the Austro-Hungarian Empire is a fine example of that. Why on earth do the Austrians control and rule over all like a dozen or so other groups of people? Well, it's because
they just conquered it.
Yeah, they conquered them. They beat the hell out of it. It's the same reason the Ottomans, have their massive but quickly dwindling empire and control, at least at their peak, millions of Europeans and down into millions of North Africans and so forth, all the Middle East. It was a world of empires.
Mm-hmm.
So nationalism is part at this point. We're not getting to that.
Not quite yet.
Crazy, awful, extreme, place that we will definitely see in World War II. But that's the reaction. That's where you have liberals, people who are talking about civil rights and whatnot, also talking about nationalism. And so Bismarck is happy to use these people to say, yes, you want a united Germany. I'm with you.
Absolutely. He's
really playing old school, though. He just wants to build an empire, and he wants a German empire.
Yeah.
So, he does his thing. We have of course the Ottomans, the sick man of Europe. Let me kind of beat up on that term, called the sick man of Europe because, as I just said, millions of people. They controlled so much European territory. This was truly a European and Middle Eastern and North African empire. It was massive, centuries old. But they're falling apart. There's too much corruption inside.
Well, and probably just so much territory to cover, right?
Well,
I think that's part of what has been the downfall of a lot of
overextended and not having the technology to be able to communicate quickly, fast enough, right? Or ancient Rome splitting itself eventually into two.
Yeah, that worked out real well.
Yeah. So. But there are attempts to reform the Tanzimat. If you're interested, you can go look that term up. But the Ottoman Empire being based in what is today Turkey. So basically the people at the top of the food chain in the Ottoman Empire are your Muslim Turks. And like all these empires, it's multi-ethnic, multi-religious. And all of these empires have an odd degree of, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got an authoritarian nature to them, of course, because they've been built by by the sword in many ways. Doesn't matter which empire we're talking about, British, French, Ottomans. But there's also a degree of tolerance for the people that they conquer. Because you kind of, not to teach any aspiring dictators out there, but there's like a sweet spot, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you don't want to totally come in and destroy everything because that just ticks people off.
They have to have enough to lose if they actually rebelled, right? You want them to have enough that they're going to feel it. If they truly have nothing to lose, then
they don't care.
Then they rebel.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that the Ottomans, just like the European powers and so forth, they've done a pretty excellent job by and large of hitting that sweet spot for centuries. But at this point, they're very much falling apart. And what's the empire mentality? Well, if you can't hold on to it, like they treat the world like the board game Risk. They truly do. So the French and British,
I'll take that.
They're snatching up, bits and pieces.
Full disclosure, I've never actually played Risk.
Have you not?
No. I've always wanted to, but I know it's really long and I haven't had the chance.
It is long. Risk, Monopoly, these are games that you're really signing up.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
I did buy David Lord of the Rings Risk with the metal ring. Yeah. We haven't played it yet.
Okay.
I bought that from a few years ago.
Oh, so it's a high priority.
It is.
Good.
It is.
But
I understand the concept.
Fair enough. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
And that as we come out of Otto's world, as he's forced into retirement in 1890, there's a reason he's saying there will be a war. It'll probably be over some damned issue in the Balkans. He sees that power vacuum. He's created many of the alliances, and the alliances continue to evolve. But we've gotten to this place where we have drifted over 99 years from this European concert intended to prevent a total war to a place where we've got rigid alliances with secret clauses. There's,
Lots of backdoor deals and...
Yep, arms race. But we'll save that for the last segment. Let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll discuss World War I minus America.
Minus America.
All right. All right, we're back. And Kelsi, you're just saying you can tell this is the stuff I like talking about.
Yep.
We've hit my special nerd spot.
I mean,
yeah.
More so probably. I don't know. It's probably on par with Poe.
With Poe.
There you go.
Well, and the Revolution's definitely
yeah. Well, I wasn't around for that.
Oh, that's true. That's true. No, but again, I mean, we're into my dissertation, area. I wrote on World War I and into the interwar period. So, yes.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh, let's be honest. Dissertation is nothing compared to this podcast. Cakewalk. Goodness. Yeah. Okay. Well, 129.
World War I.
Why don't we... Let's just pick up with the Ottomans, because I feel like that's probably a missing component for a lot of people.
I think a lot of us don't remember that the Ottomans, because I also forgot that the Ottoman Empire was still around during World War I. I thought that it was gone before that.
Really?
I did. But you're learning a lot about all those giant gaps in my knowledge.
That's okay.
Especially of World War I.
Kelsi, you didn't take enough classes from me.
I did not.
At UVU.
Only one.
I know.
It was the wrong one, apparently.
Apparently, that's okay. So, yes, the Ottoman Empire, it's been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's controlled a lot of territory. It really does start dwindling. It's across the whole 19th century. I guess I'd go with 18.
I think it's hard to pinpoint an exact year.
Oh, but see, I'm totally going to do that. So Muhammad Ali, not the boxer. Yes, Muhammad Ali Pasha. He's actually a commander within the Ottoman military. He's sent down to Egypt to calm a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up and basically goes, it's a better idea? How about I just take over here? So Egypt becomes...
I'm in charge now.
Pretty much. And so Egypt kind of becomes a he pays some deference to the Sultan, but it's semi-autonomous at this point. And
I don't like that rule, so we're kind of going to ignore that.
I mean,
it's kind of how that sounds.
He's basically the king of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
just Egypt or that whole area.
I mean, Egypt properly. And he feigns, and the Sultan accepts the feigning. Like it's too much effort and cost for the Sultan to go and fight this, just as it'd be too much effort
just kind
for
of
him
it.
to take full autonomy. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where they draw that line. Algiers. This is actually a favorite story of mine. So 1827. All right, we're going to start there. The Bay of Algiers, that's the title of the ruler. And I'm talking about the city. And remember that Algeria is on the coast of North Africa. So its coast is the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
So the ruler there in Algiers, we don't have an Algeria defined with the exact same borders that you would see today. But he definitely, he controls the region.
Yeah.
He has been trying to get funds from the French government for few decades. So during the French Revolution, the French revolutionaries borrowed money from a Jewish family in Algiers. This gets so messy, complicated. It's a blast. All right, follow me here.
Okay.
So money is lent by this very wealthy North African Jewish family. North African as in they're in, I'm just going to say Algeria to I've given the caveats. I'll just use the term Algeria. So that's lent to France. France goes through a bunch of revolutions, regime changes within the revolution. We get through the Napoleonic era, and now beheaded King Louis XVI's brother, Louis XVIII, is on the French throne, right? This is 1815 and on, minus Napoleon's 100-day shindig. And Louis XVIII is like, no, I'm not repaying money that was used to decapitate my brother. Not interested. Step off.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. So, okay, that's going on. This merchant family, and again, keep. How far do I want to go into this? Sorry. So Algeria, I mean, it's a very diverse place. You've got Berbers, who are the indigenous group that lived there before Arabs swept through in the 700s, became the dominant population. So those are separate groups. Berbers have by and large become Muslim. They have their own languages, but also tend to speak Arabic because, of course, years of dominance. Then you've also got a sizable Jewish population, in part because remember what happened back in 1492 with the Reconquista on the Iberian Peninsula that made modern Spain. Well, that Reconquista was taking back. I mean, that's what the term means, right?
Yeah.
So you've got European Christians that pushed Muslim rulers out of Spain, and as they do so, they also kick all the Jews out, all the Jews who won't convert. So they have there's no choice here, right? It's forcibly convert to Christianity, to Catholicism, or
leave.
And so we end up with a large or sizable, I'll say, Jewish population in North Africa. All right, rounding all that out. That's how we get to the Algeria that we know and love in the 1820s. So by this point, this merchant family, he's basically said, hey, listen, we'd love to pay our taxes. We just can't afford to because France won't
give us that money back.
And basically, I mean, it's kind of smooth and smart.
Oh, yeah.
He basically convinced the Bey that he's got to go take this fight for them. So now he's been trying to
then
collect.
We'll pay our taxes.
Exactly. So
I like taxes.
So the consul from France, the consul, the representative, right? He appears before the Bey. It's 1827, and he's sitting there, on basically his throne. He's got a hand fan. That's an important part of the story here, right?
Gosh.
He's got his hand fan, and the consul, as he's saying, "Hey, France, pay up." The consul says, I won't get this word for word. Go look it up if you want to see it. But he says something to the effect of. And this point is King Charles X, Louis XVIII's brother, still Louis XVI's brother, to be fair. But he says his most Christian king of France basically, will not be making deference or being told what to do by a Muslim. It's something to that effect. Now, this guy's been trying for decades, right, to collect these funds.
Yeah.
At least indirectly, years. And his reputation was being a very calm guy. That set him off. So he gets up, he takes his hand fan, goes up to the French consul, smacks him across, just like right across the face, right? Okay, he lost his temper. Not his best moment. Fast forward 3 years, okay? 3 years. Charles X.
He's been sitting on this for 3 years.
Well, he's over it, right? Like, whatever,
okay.
That happened. Now, back in France, though, King Charles X, who's been pushing his luck, he's been trying to reassert absolute rule. Now, the revolution didn't yield a republic, right? You remember from the Statue of Liberty episode, I went into some of that history.
Yeah.
So, yes, we're back to the Bourbon dynasty, again, Louis XVI's family. But there are some rights and there are some things that are voted on, and there's a meaningful legislature. The people want to see that expanded. This brother of Louis XVI wants to go back to Louis XVI days, though. He's trying to make it more of an absolutist monarchy.
But is he trying to distance himself by not naming himself Louis and hoping that they won't chop his head off?
He should have tried harder if that was his game, because they're pissed. And so in 1830, he's got revolution on his hands. He goes, I'm going to make myself more popular. I know what I'll do. Military conquest. It's always a win.
It's always.
Right?
Yes.
Again, this
the
is
people
such
that
a
have to go and fight are sure loving you for it.
This again, it's a different era, right? So, he's super wrong, but in this world of might makes right, empires, et cetera, that's where he's coming from. So what does he do? He goes, hey, 3 years ago, the Bey in Algiers smacked my consul, and the honor of France must be avenged. He uses that as pretext, sends an invading force. They take over Algiers. That's when Algeria begins to be conquered by France. You fast forward a few decades. France actually annexes, as they see it, the whole of Algeria. So whereas the rest of the French Empire is a protectorate or some sort of colonial relationship, France actually considers this North African country today, well, not today, right? But it's independent now. But I mean, what is there on the map today? They considered at this time, for decades, the last few decades of the 19th century, right into the 20th. So as we get to World War I, they consider Algeria a part of France. They call it French Algeria. And you have about, by the time we get to World War I, you've got, we're coming up on 1 million European descent people that live there, and I kind of touched on them in the episode. So you have these French citizens, they're full French citizens. They send representatives, senators to the French Senate in Paris. Like
it's very much considered France.
Yes, though there is voting. This is where you get this is where so the land is considered French, and Europeans and Christians are considered French citizens. And after some debate and thought, it's decided that Jews also have to be. The Commune decree is what makes that happen. So North African Jews are also French citizens, but Muslims are not. They are subjects. I will stop there. I've already gone. I hope this was interesting.
It was.
Right?
I didn't know any of that.
Right. So yeah, now we're definitely into my jam. But
yeah, I couldn't tell.
Yeah. So I'll put a cap on that. But my point is that's carved off from the Ottoman Empire, and it's being very much sucked into France. And this is all part of what, as the Ottoman Empire is being carved up and
it's falling apart.
Yeah, falling apart. It loses Tunisia also to France in 1882. The British come in and basically go, hey, semi-autonomous Egypt. You know what's a better idea? Being semi-British. Yeah. So that happens about the same time. The Balkans are continuing to lose territory. We discussed that. And so, yeah, the Ottomans, they're still a sizable power, though. I mean, think about it. You've got all of what's modern-day Turkey, a little sliver of Europe, still all of the Middle East as they go into World War I. And we caught where Winston Churchill, who, we all tend to think of for World War II, but he has a sizable piece of World War I.
Yeah. Wasn't he like the Lord of the Admiralty?
First Lord of the Admiralty.
Yeah.
So
I forgot the first part, but I got the rest of it right.
Important. Yeah. So he's basically, your upper lord that's over the over the Royal Navy. And yeah, when it comes to the Ottomans, the big thing there, was him telling the Ottomans. So remember the dreadnought, the dreadnought ship itself. I made something of this in the cold open, but when the British came out, with the dreadnought in 1906, this was just a game changer. Right? So all this technology and all these changes in naval warfare, the dreadnought was massive.
Yeah.
And it just upended what it meant to be a warship. So everyone needs, basically everyone's got to change, right? You can't compete with old tech. And so, in fact, there's some in Britain who are even mad at the man who basically invented it because they're like, you totally screwed it up. Here we had naval supremacy, and then you had to go make this other ship, and now it's like everyone's at zero.
One of them.
So Britain's cranking them out. The Ottomans have commissioned two, but then war breaks out, and so that's when Churchill, like, you can understand his actions as the First Lord of the Admiralty, but you can also see where there are unintended consequences here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he says, "Hey, sorry, Ottomans, war's broken out. We super need these ships. I got a requisition.
I don't want to give these to you now."
Yeah, no, we super want these because dreadnoughts extremely valuable. You're not at war. We are. We're going to pay you, and basically they're going to pay him rent every day that they don't hand over the ships. Well, and the Ottomans like, we don't want the money. We need the freaking ships.
We do in fact want those ships.
So you keep that context in mind when the Goeben and the Breslau are now being chased right through the Mediterranean and end up there, and of course that. Yet another secret agreement that Germany has just hashed out days before with the Grand Vizier there in Constantinople, because it is still Constantinople.
It is. We learned 1930 is when it changed to Istanbul.
I did wonder as I was writing the episode, like, someone's going to think I'm getting this wrong. Someone's going to think it's Istanbul. It is today. I'm very careful. I try to be very mindful. Like the episode I'm right, finishing up right now. We're going to talk about Liberty Island. We'll save that for later. You'll see why. But it's Bedloes Island still. We haven't reached the 1950s, so Statue of Liberty isn't on Liberty Island. It's on Bedloes Island. Same island, different name.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kelsi, I know I'm clear on my excited stuff here. Let me just circle out the discussion on French Algeria by pointing out, again, how global this war really is.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we kind of assume it's a European-only conflict, despite being called World War I, right? I think so much of our focus is on the French and the German and the British and like all of that happening there, because that's where all the fighting takes place.
Yeah.
The majority of the fighting, right, takes place in Europe, but there's people from all over the world.
We do have fights in other theaters, but yes, like that's
the majority of the fighting.
The majority of the fighting, the majority of the casualties, are European. I guess the thing I hope that it was caught in the episode, but the thing I'd highlight for you, dear listener, is that even these smaller. They feel like small numbers when we're talking about literally, as Kat highlighted in our discussion in the last episode, millions of Russians died, right? That's just deaths. We're not even talking about how many total were in
casualties.
The war. Yeah,
and all
just
that
deaths.
jazz.
We're in the millions. So when you hear that, you might then hear me say, a little over 400,000 Australians, and think like, oh, okay, well, that's not a lot. Okay, let's keep in mind the relative population of Australia.
Yeah.
That was huge. It's massive.
It's a sizable percentage of the amount of people that they had.
And that's where
like capable of fighting.
Yeah.
Are sent.
Like of your male of age, because that's the crowd
20
that goes.
to 40-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is
it's a big part of the population.
So it redefines, it's going to change the way, Australia, New Zealand, as we know, Anzac Day, we mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's such a big deal because it really, in many ways, creates their own national identity as something separate and apart from being a part of the British Empire, which is continuing to devolve with, increasingly independent dominions and whatnot. Let's. I realize we've talk about an hour. We'll definitely have Molly trim this a bit, but we've gone a little bit over that. Kelsi, as I just spew, I'm sorry. I know I'm so excited about all this stuff. Like we are in my space. Things I'm flying over too quickly.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, then let me take us to two. We touched on the change in naval technology. Similarly, on the battlefield,
there's a lot of weaponry change.
Yeah, I mean. The Civil War saw some of this where weapons kind of redefine the way that you fight, but it's not, maybe I'm being strong in my language here, but
this seems like a big jump.
This is huge. This is modern warfare.
Yeah.
There are people right this minute. You've got journalists who are drawing comparisons to Ukraine and Russia right now, having a similar vibe to World War I. Mm-hmm. There's going to be plenty of that going forward because, you've got the full... obviously weapons have evolved and changed even more since then, but the machine gun it's pretty much there.
Yeah.
It's the machine gun. Like those bullets fly fast and they don't stop.
Yep.
Repeating rifles, they're down to well-oiled machines and in the hands of a trained soldier, it is rapid. This is it's just changed the game entirely. It is not the same war. And so officers are learning really quick. They don't want to wear their flashy uniforms that make them stand out because, a sniper can hit you from super far away.
Yep.
Things are really accurate.
You won't even know where it's coming from.
Exactly. And it's such a juxtaposition. We're going to get into this more. The tank didn't emerge yet. I mean, it shows up at the sum, but where that episode kind of dropped off, we didn't introduce the tank just yet. I mentioned that it was coming. Yeah. But it's such a fascinating situation where you still have the cavalry on, mounted on horses.
You have just so many different fighting styles happening.
Yeah, it's a curious blend. And of course, it's very quickly giving way, right?
They're realizing, we shouldn't charge single file over this trench wall.
Yeah. Yeah, because
doesn't work so well anymore.
You can't just walk your men out. That doesn't work with machine guns. That doesn't work with barbed wire. That doesn't work with mortars that can fire off
20 rounds a minute.
Yes, it has. Yeah, and hence we get the trenches and that complex trench system that can handle a week of bombing before the sum, and everyone just come out and be like, "Yep, that was a good rest," and just devastate the Brits. Let's actually go ahead and touch on that. I think this gets to the memory, which we've kind of danced around with, like Anzac Day, the memory of World War I. As an American, we remember that World War I happened. That's kind of, in fact, one of my go-to examples that dates me in the classroom at this point. It worked a lot better 10 years ago when I first started teaching at the college level. But there's this, I should know the episode. I've used it as an example so many times. But there's an episode of Friends where Joey gets cast in a World War I movie.
Yep, I know this one.
You know this one.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Right? And all of them are like, who
fought in World War I?
Of course, Joey's embarrassed because he's in the freaking movie. Like, he should know.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, no one does. Ross, right?
Like,
the PhD and like, yeah. And it's a joke, and yet it's funny partly because it strikes a bit of a truth. We remember that it happened, but in Europe, even World War II, which is even more devastating, even more destructive. I hope that to date the episodes you've caught how deadly, and there's a reason we talk about a lost generation. So even though, yes, the American doughboy is going to head over, and we're going to get into all those, we're going to go in close now. We've set up World War I for the U.S. entry, and now we're going to go in close with the Americans for this, year and change, 1917 into 1918. But in Europe, I mean, it's felt in their bones. They remember this.
They're in it a lot longer.
And the destruction. I mean, France is basically it's devastated. The male population is, I mean, it's felt. And I only highlight France in part because, again, that's where I've researched, I published, I know more on France. It's part of why I brought Kat in, right? I know she could speak to Russia just so much better than I could.
Well, she did excellently.
It was a fun chat.
I loved it.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to have Kat back, especially as we get into
that's
Cold
a good
War
idea.
and stuff. Yeah, there'll be more. But things I've experienced in Europe that I would like to share. Just two things. One, being in Britain in 2014, that summer, I did get to see this art exhibition at the Tower of London, the Blood-Swept Lands and Seas of Red. They put a ceramic poppy. So I talked about the poppy. I mentioned John McCrae's poem. They put a single ceramic poppy for every man who died in World War I fighting for the Union Jack. So that may have been a boy from Liverpool.
Commonwealth.
Yes, but it was that also includes, a colonial soldier from Delhi, right?
Yeah.
And altogether, it's just shy of 900,000 ceramic poppies. So you walk by the Tower of London, this central piece of British history, right? This iconic structure. And it burned into my memory. I remember walking by it. Crowds are everywhere. I mean, it's overwhelming, the number of people that are standing around. I've never been in such a large yet silent crowd.
It's one of those places that you can feel it.
Yeah, and because it was so overwhelming. We're standing at some distance, but all those singular ceramic poppies taken together, Kelsi, it looked exactly like, the name of this art, this work of art. I mean, it was Blood-Swept Lands. It was a sea of red. And, just to think that these innumerable poppies that my good eye couldn't distinguish, from that distance, it all just blurred into a true sea of red. And to think all of those represent
one person.
A brother,
like a real
son.
person.
Yeah, someone who didn't come home.
Yeah.
Someone who got mowed down as a teen, a 20-something. This is a lost generation. Similarly, So I'm not to overstate my credentials. I got to do a summer program at the University of Cambridge in my undergrad. So not a degree. It was a cool summer where I did get to kind of experience studying there, and I became very close with one of my professors, Peter Martlin. He's anyhow. I've been back and visited him, and during that time, I got over to Europe quite a bit as a young professor doing research, and this is during the centennial of World War I, right? From 2014 up to about 2018, and Pembroke College at the University of Cambridge. So if you've read the Harry Potter books, the houses, right? Colleges work differently in the UK, and you can kind of see that in the Harry Potter books. Those houses, that's kind of more what the colleges are like. So it's not like the College of Humanities and the College of Engineering. You might have houses that kind of specialize in a thing. Houses, I just went Harry Potter on you. But there are ballpark, I don't remember the exact number, it's about 30 colleges at the University of Cambridge. And each college, like you get accepted to the university, then you got to get accepted to a college. Okay. Anyhow, so Pembroke is one of the colleges there. And he's been working on he's been publishing a lot of stuff on World War I for the centennial, and he had some involvement in this. So he'd always show me their war memorial, because every time I'd show up, I'd basically be there every summer. So it's 2015, 2016, and I believe it was every month. I hope I'm getting this correct. Every month that one of their students died, they added another little stick cross to a memorial that they had set up there inside their college's grounds. And so every summer I'd come back and just see the expanding number of crosses. Now, again, this isn't for the University of Cambridge. I'm talking about one of close to 3 dozen, again, a little bit under that, one of about 30 colleges at the university. Total, I believe it was about 300 students from this relatively small.
One small.
Yeah. And so Britain, France, Russia, Europe, they felt this war on a level that
we just don't get.
We didn't. And that's not to dismiss all the very real sacrifices and fighting you're going to see in the next few episodes.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's sizable. But grasp what a cataclysmic disaster this is.
Yeah, the fighting was not here. We didn't have people fighting through our farms,
right.
They did.
Yep.
Their towns are being exploded.
Yep.
And it's a very different feel.
And it's so much longer,
Yep.
There is true war fatigue by the time we, the United States, are showing up.
Yeah.
Well,
on that happy note.
I will say I am so grateful that I chose my career, but I feel very fortunate that it's enabled me to go to these places to see these sorts of things. And I know I blabbed a bit on this one, but I hope that sharing some of those things were meaningful. I mean, those memorials are, at the Tower of London, at Pembroke College, they are just burned into my memory. And
I think something like that, it's hard to forget.
Yeah.
Because it's a visual representation of this thing that's kind of just an abstract concept for a lot of people.
And as we get through the total warfare that is World War I and World War II with the Holocaust, we're going to get into
it's going to be
some more pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be heavy.
That frankly should very much be remembered.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Kelsi, we'll go ahead and call it there. Thank you for joining me as always.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. And join me in 2 weeks. I'd like to tell you a story. History That Doesn't Suck is created and hosted by me, Greg Jackson. Special thanks to today's guest, Kelsi Dines. Production by Airship. Sound design by Molly Bach. Theme music composed by Greg Jackson. Arrangement and additional composition by Lindsey Graham of Airship. HTDS is supported by fans at patreon.com/history that doesn't suck. My gratitude to you kind souls providing funding to help us keep going. Thank you. And a special thanks to our patrons whose monthly gift puts them at producer status. Amanda Bragg, Art Lane, Ben Kelly, Beth M. Chris Jansen, Bill Thompson, Bob Drazovich, Brad Herman, Shannon Stewart, Charlie and Shirley Clendenden, Chris Mendoza, Christopher Cottle, Christopher Merchant, Christopher Pullman, David Aubrey, David and Holly Cottle, David DeFazio, Durante Spencer, Dex Jones, Donald Moore, Henry Brunges, James Black, Janie McCreary, Jeffrey Moots, Jennifer Magnolia, Jessica Poppin, Joe Dobis, John Frugal-Dougal, John Keller, John Ridlevich, John Scope, John Schaefer, Juliana Tabor, Karen Bartholomew, Kristen Kenny, Kyle Decker, Lawrence Neubauer, Liz McNeil, Logan Hilbrandt, Mark Ellis, Matthew Mitchell, Melanie Jan, Michael Umbright, Mike Healy, Natalie Brewer, Nick Navoda, Ogaday Khan, Paul Goringer, Rich Miller, Rick Brown, Robert Asenzi, Sarah Trewick, Sean Peppard, Scott Slaymaker, Sharon Thyssen, Sean Baines, Sue Lane, Creepy Girl, Thomas Bug, Thomas Stewart, Tisha Black, Todd Pine, Tony Hurst, Victoria Bennett, and Zach Jackson. Join me in 2 weeks where I'd like to tell you a story.